On this edition of Whether or Not, we have nature in the news stories that include a monstrous amount of snow impacting the California ski resorts, and NASA has greenlit a new mission coming up in the next couple of years. And then Jordyn also has a feature on lake effect snow showers and what makes it click. Whether or Not starts right now. Welcome to this edition of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Patrick Wright.
And I'm your forecaster, Jacob Morse.
Now, Jacob, I hear after this past week of some rough weather in some cases, but then a nice break, we have more coming. What can you tell us?
We do, yes. Some rain is in the forecast for this weekend, but there is something to look forward to for the weekend forecast, and I'll give you more details about that in just a little bit.
I'm excited for that. And Nature in the News is coming up next. The world of viruses and bacteria can be a very mysterious one to the general public, especially considering the power the microorganisms have over our daily lives. But if you peel away the pain some organisms can inflict and take a closer look, they can look quite fascinating. In order to do this, scientists use a special kind of microscope known as an electron microscope. This type of microscope can magnify things much easier than a regular microscope by using an electron beam instead of a visible light to capture the images we see. Then with colored dyes and photographic color treatment, the individual cells, viruses, and bacteria can be easily seen and studied.
On this past Tuesday, the largest supermoon of the year illuminated the night sky. A supermoon occurs when the moon is at the point in its orbit that's closest to the Earth, called its perigee, and when it's in its full phase. When the moon reached its closest point to Earth on early Tuesday morning, it was 221,000 miles from the Earth, which is about 17,000 miles closer than average. The supermoon appeared to be 14% bigger and 30% brighter than a full moon at its farthest point from the Earth. Supermoons can appear even brighter and larger when their perigee and their full moon phase are the most closely aligned. So even though supermoons occur multiple times each year, we won't see another supermoon that's as big or as bright as the one we saw on Tuesday until 2026, which is 7 years from now.
NASA has given the green light for a new project with the intention of studying how the universe evolved and how common the ingredients for life are. The project, known as Sphere-X, will be able to analyze over 100 million stars within our own galaxy, along with 300 million galaxies, in order to uncover the new clues about how the universe underwent its rapid expansion in the first nanoseconds after the Big Bang. Closer to home, the mission will search for water and organic molecules that are essential for life within stellar nurseries, regions where stars are born. On top of this, the mission will also scan the entire sky every 6 months with 96 color bands, far exceeding any color resolution on any star map currently produced. The mission is expected to launch in 2023 and last 2 years with a budget of $242 million.
Over this past month, the Sierra Nevadas in California have been hammered with multiple rounds of heavy snow, creating incredible powder conditions at ski resorts if people can get there. The snow is piling up so high on the California highways that plows cannot tackle it and highways need to be shut down. Just over the past couple of weeks, more than 10 feet of snow fell in the Lake Tahoe region, causing officials to advise people to stay off the roads as traffic came to a standstill. In Pollock Pines, California, which is a small town in between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe, many people had to spend a night in their cars over this past weekend due to the impassable roadways. The snow depth at Squaw Valley Resort was a whopping 214 inches at the beginning of this week, setting records for the resort. Other ski resorts in the Sierra Nevadas are also loving the record-setting amounts of snow, but they hope that skiers will be able to get to the resorts safely. Hello everyone, I'm meteorologist Jacob Morse here with your Central Pennsylvania forecast. Our active pattern that we've seen over the past couple of weeks will continue with some rain for this weekend, but first starting off with your forecast for the day on Friday, the rain will stay at bay to the south associated with that low pressure system down in the southeastern United States. The high pressure will keep that rain off to our south, but we'll still be left with mostly cloudy skies here for the day on Friday. As we move this forward to Saturday, that rain does push north. We could actually see some freezing rain at the onset of this storm before it all changes over to rain by the afternoon hours. That rain will continue into the overnight hours on Saturday and heading into the day on Sunday. Rain lingering into the morning hours, but then it gets very windy behind this system as winds will be gusting to 20 to 25 miles per hour out of the west for Sunday afternoon. Your forecast for the day on Friday, reaching a high of around 40 degrees, which is around our average for this time of year with those mostly cloudy skies. For the night on Friday night, we drop down to a low of 28, those clouds still remaining in our area. And then Saturday, that precipitation possibly starting off as freezing rain in the morning hours, causing some tricky travel conditions if you're heading out on the roadways for the day on Saturday. But then by midday, as those temperatures warm up to above freezing, all the precipitation will switch over to just some plain rain. That will continue throughout the overnight hours on Saturday and linger into the morning hours on Sunday. The rain moves out by the afternoon on Sunday, and then it gets very windy by Sunday afternoon as temperatures rise to well above average, 50 degrees for your high on Sunday. Coming up next, Jordyn has a feature about lake effect snow.
Growing up inland of Lake Erie, lake effect snow has always been a reality during the winter season. In the top 25 cities in the United States, Erie ranks third in the highest snowfall totals. Above Erie is Buffalo, New York, and Syracuse, New York, both places that also experience lake effect snow. So what is so different about lake effect snow that makes these cities experience higher amounts of snowfall? Lake effect snow forms when there's a contrast between cold air and mildly warm water that sits below it. It is caused by the same process that forms thunderstorms in the spring and summer when there is warm, humid air on the ground and colder air up above. I interviewed AccuWeather meteorologist Jeff Cornish to explain the characteristics of lake effect snow in more detail.
Well, with lake effect snow, water temperatures in the Great Lakes tend to lag the atmosphere. So as the atmosphere chills down in the fall, the water is still relatively mild. So November, December, and even into January, the lake water is still milder than the air. We can have really cold air rush in from Canada over mild lake water, and that contrast leads to lift in the atmosphere, clouds form, and snowflakes begin to develop. And that snow piles up downwind of the Great Lakes.
Not only does the lake shore experience lake effect snow, but areas more inland also experience some pretty high snowfall totals. When lake effect snow occurs, the location to experience the heaviest snow is not always consistent. Wind direction has a lot of effect on where snowfall will be the heaviest. Using Erie as an example location, west winds cause the most snowfall as it carries moisture across the lake, dumping snow right along the lake shore. Inland areas, often referred to as the snow belt, also experience snowy conditions. Referring to Erie County, south of Interstate 90, a northwest wind carries moisture and deposits it into pockets of land toward the southeast.
With a west wind, they'll get into that with a northwest wind. And one thing that helps with the northwest wind is the northwest wind will ascend the hills. And in Erie County, for example, you gain about 100 feet in elevation every mile you go inland from the lakeshore to around Waterford. So that's a big deal as you get more lift. It's colder, and also that lift shoves some of that air higher into the atmosphere because it can't go into the ground. And that leads to more snowflake production because it's colder upstairs and you can hold less water vapor where it is colder.
Nationally, people often refer to areas downwind of the Great Lakes as living in the snow belt, oftentimes referring to areas like Erie, Cleveland, Buffalo, and places located downwind of Lake Ontario. But that's not necessarily true for locals.
But if you get into the snow belt, and if you're talking to somebody in Erie, they probably wouldn't include Erie city limits as the snow belt. On a more of a localized scale, the true snow belt, if you ask somebody who lives near the Great Lakes, is really an area just southeast or just east of the Great Lakes. As you step away from the lake plain and you begin to ascend into the higher elevations where even more snow falls because of a combination of their proximity to the Great Lakes, but also a little extra lift as that air is shoved upwards because of the hills and the plateau that occurs just a little bit southeast or east of the Great Lakes. At least in the case of Erie, you might go from average snowfall around 100 inches in the city of Erie, 1 mile from the lakeshore, technically in Mill Creek Township at the airport, to about 1.5 times that into Corey, where you might get 150 to 200 inches in the typical year because you're higher up and you get more of those orographic effects due to the air ascending the hillsides, creeping farther inland.
Forecasting for synoptic scale snowstorms differs from forecasting for lake effect snow conditions. For large winter storm systems that happen geographically, there is a broad area of snow for meteorologists to forecast. If temperatures are cold enough, there are not as many discrepancies that occur. Snow will fall in valleys and hillsides regardless of how close they are to the body of water. Lake effect snow systems can be a little more tricky for meteorologists to forecast.
With lake effect snow, you'll have a very well-defined burst of snow in some spots, and a few miles north or south of these lake effect snow bands, it might be mostly cloudy or even partly sunny in some cases. So huge contrasts are at play with lake effect snow over a small geographical area. It's a very challenging thing to forecast, but also I think that the public in lake effect snow belts might be a little more forgiving because they understand you might get 3 inches of snow in one part of a county and 14 inches of snow in another part of that same county with lake effect snow. You put yourself into maybe Columbus, Ohio, or State College, Pennsylvania, where you're far from the lake effect snow belts, and you're not going to see that kind of a contrast with your typical winter storm.
Lake effect snow has so many interesting factors, not only about its formation, but also the mentality of those living in the areas surrounding the Great Lakes. Nationally and locally, lake effect snow is seen through different perspectives when referring to the most snowy regions. As I mentioned earlier, I live in an area inland of Lake Erie, so I know firsthand what it's like to live in the snow belt. To be honest, there's a ton of snow and it's a lot of fun. For Whether or Not, I'm Jordyn Jenna.
Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Morse back with your extended forecast. After the rain that we'll see this weekend, we'll be expecting our temperatures to remain around average for the week next week, and we could see another storm impact our area by the middle part of next week. But first, let's recap your weekend forecast. Mostly cloudy for the day on Friday, temperatures around average for this time of year. The rain will arrive by the afternoon hours on Saturday, possibly starting off as some freezing rain before it all changes over to just some plain rain. That will continue into the overnight hours Saturday night and into Sunday morning before it clears out throughout the afternoon hours on Sunday, with temperatures warming up to 50 degrees for your high on Sunday. Heading into next week, temperatures remain around average. We could see another system impact our area for the day on Wednesday, possibly as rain or possibly as snow. So we'll be watching that as we get a little bit closer to that. But then conditions dry out for the end of the week with those temperatures still remaining around average.
Well, so I see we have some warmer weather on the way. I can really use some of that.
We do, yeah, that is something to look forward to for this weekend. By Sunday, we might actually reach 50 degrees. We'll have some rain to contend with those, so make sure you have that umbrella handy for this weekend.
Oh, well, that should be interesting for sure. And even noticed a winter storm possibly again next week.
Yes, by next Wednesday, we could see another storm. We'll be tracking that as we get a little closer to that date.
Well, speaking about winter here in State College, our Weather Whiz Quiz question asked you, how much snow has State College received this winter season beginning December 1st? Was it A, 18.3 inches, B, 22.4 inches, C, 26.8 inches, or D, 35.1 inches? If you answered B, you are tonight's lucky winner. It is definitely a fun winter. I like all the snow, but spread out and not all at once.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of large storms this winter season. It's kind of been a weekly kind of thing with a storm almost every week, it seems like, here. And we, as you saw, we have about 22.4 inches so far this winter season. So
definitely noticed it with all the cancellations here at Penn State. But from all of us at Whether or Not, I'm your host, Patrick Wright.
And I'm your forecaster, Jacob Morse.
Have a good one, everybody.